Hi, I'm Mo. I'm new to YouTube, and I'm going to start with the mid-year book freakout tag. I'm new to YouTube. I'm new to BookTube. I'm new to YouTube, and I'm going to start with a video that's very late. I'm doing the mid-year book freakout tag. Starting with the tag videos seemed like the right way to go. Starting with the mid-year book freakout tag seemed like a really good way to go because that was kind of what introduced me to BookTube. So I'm going to start there, and I know it's October. I don't buy anything new. I try to live a zero waste and plastic free lifestyle. I try to live a secondhand lifestyle. So I don't buy a lot of new books. I don't buy any new books. I don't buy a lot of books in general. But I do want to work through the books that I have and the books that I read, and I've been reading a lot this year, especially since lockdown. I have my notebook with my prompts and with the questions. The questions are probably going to be a little different when I do them. I don't have a lot of answers for the questions revolving around new books or new releases, so I'll be doing a slight variation on these. So question number 1 is, what was the best book you read so far this year? And that is going to be Graham Greene's The Quiet American. I don't like books about war, and so I was concerned that I wouldn't like this book, but I actually loved this book. I thought it was really great. This is the second book I've read by Graham Greene, who was an English author in the probably 20s through 70s, and this book has really unlikable characters, but it was definitely my favorite book of the year. The next question is, favorite sequel that you've read this year? I did read 2 books that I would like to read the sequels. That I would like to read the sequels to. So I'm going to go with that. I read Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, which is the first book in the Hannibal Lecter series. I watched the show earlier this year as well, and so I wanted to read the source material. And so I really want to read the sequel to this, Silence of the Lambs, which the movie Silence of the Lambs was based on, which I've also seen. So this book is coming. I'm going to read Silence of the Lambs. And then I also read Day World by Philip Jose Farmer this year. I've read a couple of Philip Jose Farmer's books before. I really enjoyed them. And this book was really poignant for this year and for lockdown, and I would really like to read the sequel. And that brings us to our next question, which is new release that you want to read. So again, I don't read new releases, so I don't really have an answer for that question. Question number 4 is your biggest disappointment that you read this year. That would have to go to Bill Bryson's Notes from a Small Island. I really like Bill Bryson. I've read a couple of his books before. He writes travel books, and I was really excited for this book because I was anticipating this to be a really fun, silly, lighthearted travel book about his last few months in the country. He lived there for 20 years. He's originally an American, but he moved to England, lived there for 20 years. And as he was leaving, he wrote this book. But this book was a really big disappointment for me. It was not funny. It was mean and mean-spirited. And it really didn't give me the British English vibes that I was looking for. I was really excited to travel around the country with him, and it didn't really provide that. It was a lot of negativity, a lot of complaining, and it was also pretty dated. It was written quite a while ago, so that's understandable. But it was a shame because I was looking forward to it. So we'll see. I'll definitely keep reading Bill Bryson's book, but so far this was my biggest disappointment this year. Biggest surprise this year is also kind of a negative one. My biggest surprise this year was that I read 2 Ray Bradbury books. I have previously only read Fahrenheit 451, and I love that book. I've read it quite a few times, and I think it's an excellent novel. Pretty disappointed in these. It was a surprise because they weren't at all as interesting or compelling as Fahrenheit 451, for sure. I had heard so many good things about Something Wicked This Way Come. I have friends who this is their favorite book, this is their favorite movie growing up, and I thought it was going to be, a really fun, fantasy, spooky, circus, coming-of-age story, which it was all those things, but it wasn't really a fun read. Question number 7 is favorite new author. I didn't read any new authors yet, or at least none that I would consider favorites. Thomas Harris is new to me, and a few others that I've read this year are new to me, but I would say my favorite author from this year has definitely been P.D. James. For the first half of the year, I read, I think, 4 or 5 of her books, and I have always enjoyed her work. I've read An Unsuitable Job for a Woman and several other of her mystery novels, but I do tend towards mystery novels, especially British mystery novels. So reading more of her books, just solidified how much I really enjoy her work and how much so many of her plot lines, especially for the Adam Dalgliesh mystery novels, which I've been reading quite a few of, are similar. And yet, somehow you can keep reading them. You kind of know what's going to happen. You kind of know what the community is going to be like. You kind of know what the murders are going to look like. And yet you still want to find out more. So I think that definitely qualifies as a favorite. Not a new favorite author, but definitely a favorite author from the beginning of 2020. Question number 8 is newest fictional crush. And I would say again that I'll just keep holding this book up. I don't get fictional crushes really. I know a lot of people say that, oh, I don't get fictional crushes, but I don't. I guess I don't really crush on people that way. But if I had to say that I was compelled by a character more than any other, it was definitely Adam Dalgliesh, because I read more of his books and I read them out of order, but it was still fun to see how his character progressed and learn more about him and how he, gets more of a personality through her books, and also obviously he's a cop, he's a poet at murder scenes and stuff like that, but finding kind of a personality in there and a thread and more about him as a person and less just as a detective, a true character, is great. Question number 9, newest favorite character. I unfortunately don't have the copy of the book anymore, but one of the first books I read this year was called Loafing Down Long Island by Charles Hanson Towne, who was a writer in the early 1900s, and he loves to walk, and he's a walker, and he walks out into Long Island, and that's what he chooses to do. And so he's from Manhattan, and he walks through Brooklyn and into Long Island, and he is a real person, and this was an autobiographical work, and almost like a travelogue, kind of a cross between a travelogue and an advice book, almost how to walk. But I really enjoyed his writing, and I really enjoyed him, and he seemed like just such a lighthearted character. And although he's a real person, he's long since passed away, and it was interesting to meet this character. Question number 10, a book that made you cry. I don't remember actually crying at this book, but I did read Howl's Moving Castle earlier this year, and I really was surprised by it. I liked it. I remember watching the movie, but it was much more in-depth than the movie got, I feel, and there were definitely a couple of moments where, surprisingly, I feel like I kind of teared up a little, or at least, not cried, but my eyes, got a little misty, so I think that's the closest I'm gonna get. Question number 11, a book that made you laugh. I read a couple of P.G. Wodehouse books this year, at the beginning of the year, and definitely I absolutely laughed out loud a couple of times while I read Joy in the Morning. It's very silly. A lot of P.G. Wodehouse books are. A lot of Jeeves and Wooster books are. It just has, such a strange writing style that just makes you laugh. It's just silly and funny, and it's hard to find things that are silly but also still interesting. It's hard to find things that are silly but also you get invested in the characters, and I definitely think Joy in the Morning made me laugh out loud. Question number 12, your most beautiful book that you've read this year. I have 2. Neither of them are going to be traditionally beautiful, but I really love this cover of Dr. Doolittle. I don't know where I got this. probably a book sale. Who knows? But it's so cute and funny, and I love that it's so small, and it has like little doctor's bags and like monkeys and parrots, I guess, but they look kind of more like a chicken on it. I really like this copy. It's cute. I like it. And then the other one that I really love is this copy of P.D. James, A Mind to Murder. It has just a little illustration on it. It has this kind of figure, and you can see that there's like blood. You can tell that there's something to do with doors or keys. And it's very, it's not subtle, but it's very small, and it's not what you'd expect to be the most beautiful book. But I would say out of all the books that I've read this year, this was the cover that I like looked at the most, and I referred back to the most, and I was like most interested in, and like most sparked my imagination. The last question is question number 13, books to read by the end of the year. So obviously a lot of people say all of them, books to read by the end of the year. I've also already talked about some sequels that I want to read this year. One of the books that I want to read is Be Here Now by Ram Dass. I know that a lot of people really love this book. It's like a spirituality book. It's like a self-help book. A lot of people that I follow and that I know in real life have read this book and follow kind of Ram Dass teaching to at least a certain degree. So I would like to read this book. It's also like a weird, cool book, like so square. And then also it has like different kinds of pages in it where like the text, oh, look at that. That's so pretty. Like, I don't know. Who knows? Looks really interesting. I want to read that. I think that covers everything from my mid-year book freakout tag. Again, it's not mid-year. I tried to make this video around the middle of the year, a little bit late still, and my camera totally died. I got a new camera, so hopefully I'll be making more videos. If you like this video, please leave me a comment. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.